For more than 15 months, Israeli terrorists and their terror sympathizers in world media outlets, or should I say propaganda factories, peddled lies about Hamas fighters committing rapes during 7th of October attacks. Now the rogue regime of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu is completely exposed. The settler colony built on stolen land of native Palestinians has just told the United Nations it doesn't want a special UN team to investigate the allegations of rape against Israeli terrorists involving Palestinian hostages kept inside Israeli concentration camps. So what's the story? Pramila Patten, the United Nations Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict Zones, had sought access to investigate the claims against Hamas. She, however, put a condition that any investigation must also include reports of sexual violence against Palestinians by Israeli terrorists in Israeli facilities. As reported by Israeli newspaper Haaretz, Israeli terrorists rejected this proposal and refused to grant the necessary authorization. Despite the refusal, Pramila Patten's office has now said that she plans to pursue a future mission to the region, following invitations from both the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government. If you remember, Patten had presented an exhaustive report on the allegations of rape by Hamas fighters in March last year, when she told reporters that there was absolutely no evidence to substantiate Israeli claims.
If you look at the recommendation section at the very end of the report, one of the first recommendations that I make to the Israeli government is to give access to OHCHR and or Commission of Inquiry to conduct fully fledged investigations.
Thank you for the briefing. I'm Dawn Clancy with Pass Blue. I have a follow-up and then a question. You mentioned the survivors that you didn't get to meet with, that you were told that they are seeking specialized treatment, they're too traumatized. How do you know that? Who told you that they're seeking?
I'm sorry, I cannot disclose that information.
Okay. Then my other questions, and forgive me, because I feel like with this report I'm now a little bit more confused than I was before I read it. I noticed on social media that you had met with a Zaka volunteer. His name's Yossi Landau. Yossi Landau has been in the media. He was in the New York Times investigation that has been through the shredder at this point as far as figuring out what's accurate and what's not. In this report, you mentioned that there was a media report about a woman who was pregnant, her stomach was ripped open, the baby was ripped out, it was stabbed, the umbilical cord. That story came from Yossi Landau, who on social media you can see on their Zaka Instagram page you met with. So when I see that, and then I read this report, I'm lost. To what extent do I believe this? This isn't an investigation, but it kind of is. So then how is this any different than the New York Times story if you're just collecting evidence? I'm just really trying to, if I'm not being clear, please let me know and I'll try to.
Well, you are indeed not very clear, but
what wasn't clear?
Well, I don't get the gist of the question. I think my report is pretty straightforward. We explained that we went to 4 different locations based on.
But my question is, you met with Yossi Landau.
Yes,
he's the creator of that.
I will. I know. I get your question. First of all, because you're talking about social media, yes, indeed. You've seen the photo, and it was at Kibbutz Be'eri. It was at Kibbutz Be'eri, and if you read the section of the report, starting with paragraph 62, we say what we have been able to verify, and that we went there because of the attention paid to Kibbutz Be'eri and sexual violence. And I have mentioned in my report at least 2 allegations previously reported that we found to be unfounded, and we explained that it's due to either new superseding information or inconsistency in the information gathered, including first responder testimonies, photographic evidence, and other information. And I give two examples. Yes, we found it to be unfounded.
Can I just follow up really quick, please? The reason I'm asking this is because there are real consequences to this report. I mean, I know you keep saying the Commission of Inquiry, they need to go and do their investigation, which I believe they're doing, but the Israeli ambassador to the UN has said publicly, we're not going to cooperate with that. So that recommendation is already DOA, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Are you at all concerned that this report, sexual violence against women, this is being weaponized as a way to continue violence in Gaza? That's why I'm asking these questions, because this is an important report.
Well, I understand that the invitation to me came as a result of pressure from civil society organizations in Israel and academia. And I do hope, and I can tell you that when I was there, no one told me it's too little, too late, or you came too late. On the contrary, many interlocutors told me, we are still mourning. Why are you here? And why this narrow focus on sexual violence? And everywhere, throughout the report, you see that I mentioned that could not be verified, and verification would entail a proper investigation. And I hope that the relevant stakeholders in Israel would pick it up and put pressure on their government to have a fully fledged investigation that would be able to cast real light on what really happened, or close to get as close as possible to what happened. And I fully agree with what you're saying. I mean, that is why, in spite of not being an investigation, I did not want to go and to rubber stamp anything that's given to me.
So in short, to answer your question, no, we could not verify any sexual violence in Be'eri at this point, which does not mean necessarily it didn't occur. It means we couldn't verify it. And 2 of the cases that were reported were found to be unfounded.
But it didn't stop the supporters of this Zionist regime to peddle this lie every day, almost every day. Patten had also said last year that Israelis were not keen to give her and her team the access to so-called victims of alleged rapes. This is what Israelis are good at, playing the victim card. No one can act better than Israeli terrorists when it comes to pretending as victims, despite committing war crimes to unimaginable proportions. They do this because they know that their slaves bought in the US, the UK, the EU, Canada, and Australia will do anything in their capacity to protect them from any future consequences. Kill about 250,000 people using American and British bombs, destroy their homes with the help of the Western powers, wipe out every single medical facility and places of learnings, and then cry victims. That's typical Israeli terrorists for you. Anyway, Pramila Patten's office has warned that Israel's refusal to cooperate could damage its international reputation, if it had any left. And the settler colony built on the stolen land of Palestinians may even be included in the United Nations blacklist of entities responsible for conflict-related sexual violence. This is huge. And this is not it. Representatives from Israel's Women's Network, who met with Patten's team in New York, have been warned that this outcome might exclude Hamas from the same list. I hope she goes ahead and implement this. What are you waiting for? Everybody knows now that Israel is a terrorist state. Everybody knows that all the allegations of rapes were untrue. It didn't hold water. And yet, the United Nations is just playing the waiting game. They're issuing warning. That's it. Lip service. It's time that you take stringent actions against this rogue regime of Netanyahu. What is Israel doing in the United Nations? It doesn't have any respect for the world body. It bans UNRWA. It takes action, it blocks UNRWA from doing the humanitarian work. UNRWA is a United Nations body. And yet, the United Nations continues to be a mute spectator. So if Pramila Patten has issued this warning, I expect her to implement this. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.